Let's talk about the diagnosis of MS. How do I know I've got MS based on the symptoms? So diagnosis is based on three things. So I've mentioned the symptoms of MS. Now we also talk about the positive findings on examination, usually done by a doctor. And then the third is investigations such as an MRI of the brain and the spinal cord and lumbar puncture. So in terms of symptoms, we've talked about vision, speech problems, motor and sensory deficits such as tingling, bladder and bowel problems, problems with coordination, walking. With the examination, this involves a neurological assessment done by your doctor to assess your brain and your spinal cord. So they'll be looking at, for example, with optic neuritis or double vision, they'll be looking at, is there any pain on eye movements? Also looking for double vision, known as diplopia or nystagmus on eye movements as well. Then they'll be checking your coordination. Can you use your finger to touch your nose and to touch my finger? And then do that with the left hand as well. Or they might tell you to clap like this. Can you coordinate going back and forth with your palm? And the doctor would also check your reflexes with MS, check your balance in terms of your walking, as well as other findings that will present on a neurological assessment. Now, one of the main investigations to do is an MRI scan, which will visualize any lesions in space and time, whether it's in the brain or in the spinal cord. Now, the only problem of an MRI is that if you just have one lesion that shows up in MRI, one lesion is not enough to diagnose MS because you need more than one lesion. So this is why in some people, diagnosing MS using an MRI takes time because you either have to wait for another relapse or for another lesion to appear because you need evidence of lesions disseminated in space and time. So disseminated in time means that your relapse or the lesions have appeared at different times or dates, while disseminated in space means that you have one or more than two separate lesions in different parts of the central nervous system, whether it's in the brain or in the spinal cord. Now, in most cases, as I said, an MRI scan is not sufficient to diagnose MS, or they might just want to make double proof sure that this is MS. So usually they'll do a lumbar puncture. Now, a lumbar puncture is a needle that goes into the space between your discs so as to capture a small amount of fluid known as the cerebrospinal fluid, which I'll call the CSF. Now, this is looking for what we call oligoclonal bands. Now, these are antibodies that attack the myelin. As I explained earlier, your immune system thinks that the myelin is a foreign body and attacks it. So antibodies are produced as a result. So these antibodies are collected from the CSF and then they run through a process called electrophoresis, which is now looking for the presence of two or more bands in the CSF, which are called the oligoclonal bands. Now, oligoclonal bands are found in more than 80% of MS patients, and it's a sign of disease activity. Now, the aim of diagnosis is not just to confirm MS, but to rule out other causes or conditions that can present similar to MS. So your doctor would also want to do blood tests such as a thyroid test, HIV, tests for like vitamin deficiency, blood sugars for diabetes, and several other blood tests. Now, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please feel free to share, like, and subscribe.